Guatemala's Supreme Electoral Court warns of legal irregularities in the voting system ahead of general elections. The Russian President, Vladimir Putin, opened the second and last day of the Russia-Africa Summit in St. Petersburg. And Niger's Interior Ministry has banned all public demonstrations following a coup d'etat carried out by a group of military officers. Hello from the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba. This is From the South. I'm your anchor Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. Guatemala's Supreme Electoral Court warns that it again sees the general elections at risk after learning that the Public Prosecutor's Office is initiating proceedings against the system's data entry clerks. The Special Prosecutor's Office Against Impunity has requested the highest electoral body to provide them with the names of the data entry clerks hired from the electoral process 2023. The prosecutor, Leonor Morales Lasso, has established a term of 5 days for the data to be submitted, which she said will facilitate the proceedings and strengthen the process for the corruption case of the SID movement. After the announcement, civil society organizations are gathered in resistance fronts in defense of the process. And we have more on the matter. The United Nations organization urges the Guatemala government to guarantee the rights of citizens and to respect the will of voters participating in the electoral process. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, considered that attempts to weaken the electoral process in Guatemala could hinder the respect for the will of the voters. Now we move on to Ecuador. There, the military and the police found an arsenal of war weapons inside the Guayas #1 prison, also known as Penitenciaría del Litoral, or La Peni, located in the city of Guayaquil. The intervention at this prison, the most dangerous and populous in the country, began earlier this week to take control of the facility following a riot that started on Saturday. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro Moros received the Secretary General of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, Mohamed Hamel. The meeting was attended by the Minister of Oil, Pedro Rafael Tellechea, and the Foreign Minister, Iván Gil. And the people of Venezuela remain mobilized to ratify their support to President Nicolás Maduro Moros. From the western state of Trujillo, the base of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, as well as social and popular organizations, were deployed in the town of Escuque, where they defended the achievements reached by the revolution, while assuring to deepen the political organization for the next electoral movements. In Venezuela also, 4,238 new professionals joined the national public health system. The President, Nicolás Maduro Moros, led a graduation ceremony at the Hugo Rafael Chávez Frías University of Health Sciences. In this ceremony, 2,691 undergraduate students and 1,547 postgraduate students completed their courses. In Peru, preparations for the protests against Dina Boluarte on July 28th are moving forward. Social organizations from the region of Puno arrived in Lima, the capital, to participate in the great mobilization, as well as the relatives of the victims of Juliaca, in order to demand justice. While in the province of Chiclayo, the Regional Unitary Front of Lambayeque called a sit-in for Friday as a sign of protest. And the so-called Third Malón de la Paz continues in Argentina, in which social movements, including indigenous peoples, are marching from Jujuy to the capital, Buenos Aires, to denounce the provincial constitutional reform that threatens their territories. It is expected that, on Thursday, they will advance through the section of Santa Maria in the province of Catamarca, to be later received in Tafí del Valle by the Brothers of the United Nations Program for the Development of Tucumán. From the city of of Quiaca in Jujuy, the indigenous movement started a march, combining journeys on foot and in cars to reach the federal capital. In Haiti, a non-governmental organization denounced on Wednesday that the wave of violence has left a record of 600 murders and 271 kidnappings between January and June 2023. The Defensors Plus collective criticized the administration of the Prime Minister Ariel Henry, who has been in power since the assassination of the President Jovenel Moïse 2 years ago. The group also pointed out that Henry failed to keep his promises and plunged the nation into a state of poverty, insecurity, violence, and vulnerability. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find the news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. On Friday, Russian President Vladimir Putin opened the second and final day of the Russia-Africa Summit in St. Petersburg. During his address to the plenary session, he stressed the importance of his country's friendly ties with the African continent. Referring to the expressions of colonialism that remain latent, he emphasized that the new, truly multipolar world order that is being created is essentially based on ideals of freedom, independence, and sovereignty. The head of the state analyzed the unstable situation of several African nations, determined by their colonial legacy, and ratified his country's willingness to continue operating and cooperating with Africa, as it did during the pandemic.
A paradoxical situation is emerging. On the one hand, Western countries are obstructing supplies of our grain and fertilizers. On the other hand, I will say frankly, they hypocritically accuse us of the current crisis situation on the world food market. Russia's share of the world wheat market is 20%, while Ukraine has less than 5%. This means that Russia makes a significant contribution to global food security, and the country is a solid, responsible international supplier of agricultural products. Our country will continue to support states and regions in need, including with its humanitarian supplies. We are endeavoring to participate actively in shaping a more equitable system of resource allocation.
And developing ties with African countries is one of the invariable priorities of the Russian Federation, as the Russian President Vladimir Putin told his Ugandan counterpart, Yoweri Museveni, on Thursday. The Ugandan president invited Russia to take part in the exploration of the oil in East Africa. For his part, President Putin has been holding bilateral meetings with African leaders on the sidelines of the Russia-Africa Summit in St. Petersburg.
This forum is very important for us. The comprehensive development of ties with African countries in politics, in the field of security, in the trade and economic and humanitarian spheres is one of the invariable priorities of Russian foreign policy, and Uganda is certainly among Russia's key partners on the African continent.
Propose new areas, like for instance, the area of refinery and exploration of for petroleum products. We've got some little oil which we want to export as crude, but also refine for the East African market. But Russian companies can also take part in exploration for more oil in our area. Production is high, but we are still producing raw materials.
Excellency, allow me to personally state that Zimbabwe is in solidarity with the Russian Federation in your country's special military operation in the Ukraine. As current chair of the Kimberley Process Certification Scheme, the KPC, Zimbabwe unreservedly condemns the unjustified and vindictive ban on the sale of Russian diamonds on the world market.
On Thursday, the Chinese President Xi Jinping met with Indonesian President Joko Widodo in Chengdu, the capital city of the southwest China's Sichuan province, where the 31st International University Sports Federation Summer World University Games will take place. Widodo will be among the foreign leaders and the senior officials to attend the opening ceremony of the Chengdu University Games. Now we move on to other topics. The Russian military claimed on Thursday that Ukrainian forces suffered heavy losses during an offensive attempt in Zaporizhia.
In the Zaporizhia direction, the enemy didn't conduct any active actions overnight, and restoring combat capability after the offensive of the Ukrainian armed forces north of the settlement of Robotyne in the Zaporizhia region, in which up to 3 battalion tactical groups from the Strategic Reserve Brigades were involved, failed, and the enemy suffered heavy losses. Enemy losses per day in these directions amounted to more than 280 Ukrainian servicemen, 25 tanks, 10 infantry fighting vehicles, 3 armored combat vehicles, 2 vehicles, a Czech-made RM-17 Vampire multiple rocket launcher, as well as 2 howitzers FH-70 made in the UK. The Russian armed forces delivered concentrated strikes with long-range air and sea-based high-precision weapons against airfields, control and deployment centers of the Ukrainian armed forces, assembly shops and storage sites for main boats, as well as missiles, weapons and military equipment received from European countries and the United States. The target has been reached. All assigned objects are hit.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English, and there you will be able to rewatch our interviews, the top stories, the special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. We have a final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back. Niger's Interior Ministry has banned all public demonstrations following a coup d'etat carried out by a group of military officers who now have the support of the army. The ministerial office recalls that the state maintains a monopoly on violence and represses alleged riots committed by people demonstrating support for those holding the president, Mohamed Bazoum. It stated that it has instructed police forces and other security groups, of whom it does not give details, to arrest those who carry out riots, acts of vandalism, or public demonstrations of any nature. The international community ratifies that it only recognizes Bazoum as the president. In Syria, at least 6 people were killed and 32 others were wounded after a powerful explosion in a neighborhood south of Damascus. The incident occurred due to the explosion of a motorcycle near a public cab in the Sayeda Zainab neighborhood. In Zimbabwe, supporters of the main opposition party attended a Citizens Coalition for Change, the CCC, a rally in Cheguru ahead of the country's general election on August 23rd. At the rally, Nelson Chamisa, who is the main opposition leader, warned against violence directed towards members of the opposition. Chamisa further called for transparency in the forthcoming elections, urging the United Nations and other observation bodies to be allowed to oversee the election in the Southern African country. Now we move on to other topics. In Greece, firefighters rushed to tackle forest fires amid renewed winds. Greek firefighters rushed on Thursday to quell deadly wildfires that have ravaged the country for the past 2 weeks before strong winds forecast to rekindle the blaze on Thursday. In Pakistan, at least 11 people have died due to heavy rains and floods over the last 24 hours, bringing the total death toll to 168 since the start of the monsoon season on June 25th. The National Disaster Management Authority reported that among the victims, there are 5 children from different areas of the country. In the Philippines, Typhoon Doksuri lashed an island and ravaged northern provinces with fierce winds and rains, displacing nearly 16,000 villagers as it flooded low-lying villages and cut power supplies. According to authorities, there were no immediate reports of casualties after the typhoon hit Fuga Island in Cagayan province, where 15,843 people were evacuated from high-risk coastal villages. And in Panama, the canal reduces the number of daily vessel transits preventively and indefinitely due to the drought affecting the waterway's flow. The Panama Canal Authority, Ricaurte Vázquez, indicated that the measure responds to the need to minimize the probabilities of additional drafts in the coming weeks due to the drought that affects its basin. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.